Grab your big book, your pen, your highlighter, and notepad and get ready to hear and apply some of the solution from the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous through the experience, strength, and hope of Nikki M. To have a question addressed in a future episode of Noodle It Out with Nikki, please send an email to noodlewithnikki@gmail.com, and Nikki is spelled with 2 Ks. To get a more interactive experience with Nikki as she noodles out life and recovery questions using the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, you can get a link to her weekly Noodle It Out with Nikki meeting held live on Zoom every Monday morning at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. The information to that meeting is in the show notes of this podcast. God morning, God afternoon, and God evening to all. My name is Justin B., and I am a son of an all-powerful and all-loving God and a qualifying addict of multiple fellowships, living in the miracle of recovery. And I'm here with the intelligent agent, spearhead of God's ever-advancing creation, and my co-host, Nikki M. Nikki, take a minute and tell us a little bit about your day and last couple of days and how you're doing.
Oh, gosh. I'm just, like I said, you asked me, how am I? And I said, I'm feeling powerful because I tapped a source of power. And it's funny, you asked me about what have I been doing the last couple of days? Well, I'm just going to mic drop it here. Meeting makers don't make it. Why? Because we don't get better just to hang out in meetings all day. So yesterday, what did I do? Well, I was service. I'm coffee lady at my local church. And after that, I have a bike. It's in Toronto. We spend a lot of months in the cold. So I rode my bike, took my cousin for brunch. My son joined us. I mean, he's a miracle. He's 19 and showed up on time. It's the little things, Justin, right? And then I went to this drum circle where I'm like, I can't, that's for young people, but they wanted me too. And I just listened to the music, and it was a glorious day because, again, I didn't come into recovery to sit in meetings all day. I came here to get a life, and God gave me one. So grateful, Justin.
Love it. And miracles, a 19-year-old showing up on time doesn't get any better than that, huh? Love it.
It's the little things. Amen.
Absolutely. Okay. A little bit of business here. I'm the steward of the RICO 12 family of recovery resources. Among those are RICO 12 weekly speaker meeting podcast, the RICO 12 shares podcast, and a few other projects in the making. The RICO 12 missions and goals are to educate addicts of all varieties of the commonality of all addictions, as well as a common solution that can work for virtually all. We subscribe to the idea in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous that, quote, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path, end quote. We also have the goal of reducing and eliminating the stigma of shame that accompanies addictions of all kinds. We hope to educate many so that they understand that addiction is a disease that can be treated and from which a person can live a happy, joyous, free, and productive life. As Nikki just shared that yesterday, she spent a happy, joyous, free, and productive day, not drowning in the morass of addiction. And that is if they follow a few simple but not easy directions. RICO 12 is a self-supporting service and appreciates donations to help us continue to share this message of hope with as many as can have the opportunity to hear it. And the details on doing that will be in the chat of the podcast here. This project called Noodle It Out with Nikki M is an exercise and deep dive into finding solutions to questions, issues, and things we encounter in everyday life in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'll bring a couple of questions from my own life or from the lives of people that I work with in recovery or other situations that I'm aware of or can think of, and bring that to Nikki so that she can dive deep in the Big Book and give us some solution there. So everybody get your Big Book ready and get it out, get your pen ready, and let's get ready to take some notes. Today, Nikki, I would like to address the topic. So the last couple of times we've sat down and talked together, we talked about willingness and willingness and honesty is what we've already talked about. Today, I want to hit on open-mindedness, the third of that triad of the essentials that we're told in the Big Book. So before I get into that, do you have any initial thoughts on open-mindedness, or maybe a quick review on honesty and willingness that we've already talked about?
Well, we talked about those as the essentials, and most meetings do start out, what you said is page 58. Rarely have we seen a person fail who is thoroughly honest, basically. I mean, it's if you can really be honest, and what's honest? Well, if you're constitutionally incapable of being honest, you're a psychopath. And most of us are not psychopaths. Say this helpful. and willingness. Are you showing up? I mean, it's so simple, but it's not easy. So that's what comes to mind at first, because, I can barely remember yesterday, let alone what we spoke about in the past recording. So I'm really excited to jump into the new topic of open-mindedness, which is the third key to that, being honest. And honest is a simple yes or no. That's how simple it is. And the willingness is, are you willing to do the work? That's all. The willingness is like, what is the work? It's all laid out in this beautiful blue book with white pages and black ink. And now we'll jump into the open-mindedness part.
Love it. And thank you for sharing that. And the first situation, or the question, I guess, that I want to bring to you is my experience with open-mindedness coming into the program. So, I was raised in church, and I have a conviction of truth. And some of these recovery principles seem to go against maybe the teachings and my understanding of the teachings of what I was raised at. Yet, no matter how hard I try to practice my faith, I keep coming back to my drug of choice. How are these principles that I'm just not willing to grasp or hold on to in recovery going to help me? How does that pertain to open-mindedness?
Okay, well, that's why when we have to make the approach to the newcomer, that's number one. Remember, everybody, the book doesn't say raise your hand. It certainly doesn't say call so-and-so if you need a sponsor. It says we who are recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body make the approach. That's on many pages. I mean, I can just think of one right off the top of my head is 153. It says it, I think, on page 18, 19, and again on page 25. It's just everywhere it says make the approach. It doesn't say raise your hand. So we make the approach to these people because they're dying. And then we arm them with the facts is what we do. So to keep an open mind is that we share our experience, strength, and hope. Nothing worked for me, friend. And in my program, and you've worked the steps the way, my sponsors showed me and your sponsor showed you, Justin, is that we have a simplified list, which is called a log and loser list. And Justin can give you the link to find this workbook that we use. And it simplifies hours of talking, which is to keep an open mind. Let's just keep an open mind, new friend. What worked for you to get better? Because you're here dying. And I'm going to give you all the lists of things that I've used: human aid, easier, softer ways, half measures, all the things I've tried, including my big book, including my sponsor, including the meetings and the podcast, including moving from California, Orange County, really beautiful there, to Toronto to get rid of my addiction. Oh, and when my daughter didn't work and I had a son and that didn't work and my mom got me a 4-pound pocket dog. I mean, you just list it all out for the person so you can arm them with the facts to keep an open mind, new friend, that nothing works for you, including, Justin, that church you were raised in, that mosque, new friend, Habibi, that you went to. Oh, shalom, shalom. Your rabbi couldn't help you. I mean, this is really radical. So I have to show my new prospect how nothing works for them so they can keep an open mind. Do you want to die or do you want to live? I've got to lay out the facts because I am properly armed with the facts about myself, is what page 18 says. So my job as a sponsor, which it says is on page 98, it's not just to burn into the consciousness of every man, woman, and child they can get better. They just have to trust God. My new friend hates God. My new prospect can't stand it. They can't have faith. They don't know. How do I get them to have an open mind? I have to ask them to sweep, remember on page 55, sweep away all your prejudice. It says, we ask you, because it says right here, I think it's page 55. It says, I can only clear the ground a bit. We, big book people, sponsors, we can only clear the ground a bit for our new prospect. But if my testimony helps you, number one, sweep away prejudice, remember, new friend, I'm giving you a testimony. I'm witnessing for you that I too couldn't stop. And I wanted to. I too had lost the power of choice. Once I start, I cannot stop. I was where you were. I need you to keep an open mind, sweep away your prejudice. I'm going to show you what worked for me. And then remember, a simple yes or no. Are you willing to do this, new friend? Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a couple thoughts come to mind that I want to get to in this and ask you about that. The first, the first is a muck up of the big book that I did here in the last year and a half, 2 years, I think. And this is We Agnostics on page 44, the second paragraph of that chapter. To one who feels he is an atheist or agnostic, and I added in, or religionist, such an experience seems impossible. I can close myself off so much because I believe that, my current understanding of God, of how things work, is the right way and the only way that I can trip myself up on that. And that shift has really shifted my whole life and my whole recovery, my whole interaction with everybody, really. Opened my eyes a ton, opened my mind. When somebody, and I think you touched on this, Nikki, but when somebody comes to you and says, hey, this is the way it is, and you have to conform to me as you sponsor me, as to, conform to my truths. How do you deal with that closed-mindedness that from their point, doesn't feel like it's closed-mindedness because it's the truth to them? How do you approach that?
Okay, well, here it is. Let's go deep on this one, everyone. Get your snorkel goggles on. We're going to dive. Page 55, second paragraph. It says, I'm going to say to you, you're the skeptic. I'm going to say, well, you're fooling yourselves, because it says, this is where it says in my book, because you've tried everything else. So we're here talking deep down inside. Every woman, that's me, I'm a woman, and is the fundamental idea of God. So it's in us, because you've tried, new friend, to look for it in the bottle, in your persons, in the casino, in social media, in your validation, in your money, in your work, blah, blah, blah. You list all the human aid. They've tried to find it. And it says, but this power's been obscured, which means it's blocked because of my need to always be right. See, remember, I always need to be right. So this power is blocked by calamity. And then I list some calamities. See, I was blocked from God for a long time. My friend's child was raped, murdered, and found in garbage bags on Toronto Island. And that blocked me from God. Her daughter's the same age as my daughter. There is no God when it comes to children and animals being hurt in my world. And I show this, the sponsor. I said, so now what's blocked you from God? What calamity? What big calamity? And then we Google the word calamity. What pomp? Your pride, what, like your ego. Is your ego blocking you from God because you think you know better? And then I take him to the worship of other things. My line says, I worship men and money. I worship finance and romance. I worship sex and checks. What do you worship? And then we get to talk about that. And I'm going to say in some form, God's there. So it's inside of you. Can we agree to that? Because you and I, new friend, have not been able to find it in the fridge, Justin. We haven't been able to find it in our partners, in our children, Justin, the power, right? And so then I go down even to this line on page 55 where it says, sometimes we had to search fearlessly. And I've sponsored people 7 years a priest, 7 years an Army, United States military guy. These are disciplined professions this person had. And I asked him, did you search fearlessly for God? Even you're a priest. And the truth is, no, he was searching fearlessly for approval. He was searching fearlessly for people to accept him. He was searching fearlessly for a place to hide out from his addiction. You understand? This is radical, but I had to get real quick. Did you search fearlessly? You don't want the word God. Did you search fearlessly to get humble? Did you search fearlessly to forgive? Did you search fearlessly to get obsessed with gratitude? I see you here with your fingers and toes and your beautiful face and your hair and your, I list these things for them. Did you really search fearlessly? Like, you got to make them see what they can't see. It takes two to see one. I'm blocked. I can't see it. So again, and then I get them to answer. Well, they're like, yeah, kind of, sort of. It's like, no, yes or no. Did you search fearlessly for God? And then we'll roll back into here because it says one who feels that they are an agnostic or an atheist, this experience seems impossible because you haven't searched fearlessly for God, madam, sir. You search fearlessly for your need to be right. validate for your fantasy of what it will look like when people understand you and get you. This is so deep. You've never searched fearlessly for this power called love, agape love, wanting nothing in return, servant of God. Hey, page 77. You've never searched fearlessly for the purpose of serving God's people, wanting nothing in return. And then their brains start to explode all over my phone. And we're not on a Zoom call, so I can't even see them. I just feel it because they're realizing in that moment that Mr. Religious, Mrs. I'm this and that. No, you're just doing the motions. You're not really believing. This is so radical, as page 117 says.
Yeah, and I can totally see that, doing the motions and not really believing, thinking that the motions are what is going to save me when that's not what it is. It's insanity for me to live my life in that rat race, that hamster wheel of burning myself out, doing the actions when I don't believe. Now, getting to the belief part is really cool. So actually, I had an experience this morning with a sponsee that I'm working with, and he speaks the language of recovery, but his feet don't move the language of recovery. So it comes out here and the actions don't follow. So in that case, I'm the open-mindedness is all here and not in the hands and feet. How in the big book do we learn how to translate the words and what we think we understand into actual actions?
Well, there's actually a page for that, and it says right here, page 130. Let's go there real quick, Justin. It says on the second paragraph down, people, if you're listening, please take notes, just go back and get your big book out and muck it up with us. Those of us, line out, that's me, Nikki, who has spent much time in the world of spiritual make-believe. My line out says fantasy. I've eventually seen the childishness of it. Like, it's so childish for me to live in this fantasy make-believe world. See, it says this dream world has been replaced, because I'm now on page 130. I'm entering the spirit world. My next function is to grow in effectiveness and understanding. I've read on page 77 that my purpose is to serve God's people. So I know what my purpose is. So I have to accompany it by a growing consciousness, which is my mind, my consciousness. I had someone Google the word conscious, like Google that and go deep into what does it mean to be conscious? To the power of God. This is a power we're looking for. So it says, that's Nikki and Justin, we've come to believed is 100% convinced that this power of love, forgiveness, accountability, acceptance, gratitude would like me to keep my head in the clouds. I'm always thinking about how much God loves me, how I'm a spearhead. My purpose is to serve, wanting nothing in return. God will do for me what I cannot do for myself. But that my feet, I'm a soldier, are to be firmly planted on the ground. Page 420. I am to never sit and do nothing while waiting for God, for these principles to tell me what to do. Instead, I'm to do the next right thing and leave the results up to my power that I choose to call God. And however that turns out for me, that's God's will. That's page 420, back to page 130. It says, that is where my fellow travelers are. They are chopping wood and carrying water, as a circuit speeder, Peter M, says, chop wood, carry water. Isn't that what I do? I'm to be firmly planted on the earth. Hey, you and I study a book, Justin, that says, look at the ants. There are no leaders. They just work. I recently watched this thing on YouTube where they poured cement down an ant thing and then they chipped away at all of it. You wouldn't believe the architecture these ants do. I mean, oh my God, like, talk about what God does with creatures. My brains are exploding, people. And then it says, that's where I'm going to find people who, hey, work hard, simple but not easy. A price must be paid. See, that is where my work must be done. chop wood, carry water. I'm a soldier of God. These are the realities for Nikki. I'm not allowed to lay in my book, blot out the consciousness of my existence with every Twilight book ever written, 50 Shades of Grey. Are you with me here? Hey, some of you guys like Stephen King, blotting out the consciousness of your existence with fantasy books. You understand, this is radical.
Absolutely. And it takes me back to, I don't know where it is in the book, but it says faith without works was indeed dead. If I didn't, there we go. It was on page 15. Then faith would be dead indeed. That's such a concept that, in my life, I thought, well, if I do the actions, the belief, the power will follow. And yes, but I think there's got to be give and take in each side. I got to believe, I got to get to the root of it. And then the actions follow naturally rather than it being a checklist and a checkbox type situation.
Well, that's step 2. Remember, these steps are laid out exactly. It says came to believe. It doesn't say instantly now, Justin and Nikki are going to be transported into this belief system in a day. It says came to believe, which my line out says, this is a process, not an event. This, and then go deeper. It's on page 84. This is not an overnight matter. It must continue for a lifetime. Let's go deeper. Page 117 says, you will make mistakes. Your old problems will still be with you. This is as it should be. Let's go deeper. Page 164 says more will be revealed. If you think you're going to come in here and learn this in a lifetime, you are, I love everybody enough to tell you that's insanity. We're in spiritual kindergarten here, everybody. Grammy's just got her pull-ups on. Sometimes I have to go right back to the diaper and get changed when I'm in a mood. Scary stuff. I need this or I die.
Love it. This has been a really good conversation on open-mindedness. And it's really, you mentioned a few times, my brains are exploding here. And that's opening up, that's bursting out of some of those walls that I've created in my own mind and just pushing it out there. Thank you for that, Nikki. Keep such good stuff. And
wait, can I go deeper one real quick for people who are listening, which is open-mindedness, brains exploding. We have an open mind. You just said it. There's our visual. Like we're opening up our minds so much. Our old thoughts are coming out, and even go deeper with that, because I do want to end maybe this segment here, which is we urge you to do our program, page 117. We need an open mind. Why? Our old programming, computer people, it's got a bug in it. We're not going to be able to start up in the morning. We need a new program. We need a new program, Justin. You know more about that. I've got my iPhone 7 here going, someone just called, help. Don't make me push the wrong button so we can continue this podcast. I love this life.
Love it, Nikki. Everybody keep coming back. This is good stuff. Open your minds. Sometimes going to a meeting and then putting the book on the shelf for a week and coming back for a meeting. Well, that never works. Never works. Open your mind, dig deep, and let's get into this. All right. We'll see you soon in the next recording. Have a good one.